And that is the 2024 Force Gurkha. And if you are interested in that, then this is the only review you need to watch. We'll be going inside, outside, and even under this Force Gurkha and give you everything that there is to know about this car. The brochures put out a lot of tall claims and have best in class written all over it. Is it really best in class? Well, there's only one way to find out. If you have not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button and let's jump right into the review. First things first, kudos to Force Motors for fixing what was probably the biggest complaint of the previous gen Gurkha owners. That low hanging control arm and that tax plate, which deliberately reduced ground clearance to save on taxes, saw us going through a series of modifications to get the problem sorted. If you're interested in that video, I'll link it in the description below. Luckily, now both the 3-door and the 5-door mounting points for the lower control arm have been sorted. The control arms themselves have been redesigned and made flatter, so we've got a clean and neat ground clearance liberating arrangement at the front end. They seem to have taken their time with it, but thankfully the 2024 Gurkha has seemed to address most of the shortcomings of its 2021 predecessor. Way back in 2022, in this channel we had put up a video predicting all the changes that should be brought into the next version and why should those changes be done. I'll link that video in the description below, and I'm glad to report that all of those predictions have come true. Force Motors seem to be listening to the market and improving their product based on feedback. Now, is that too little too late, or is it better late than never? Let's find out by talking about the exterior and design of the 2024 Force Gurkha. While the 3-door version seems to be unchanged largely at first glance, Force seems to have beaten Mahindra to it for once and launched the 5-door variant, which I personally feel is nicely proportioned, and the longer wheelbase perfectly complements the tall height of the car. And now it is strikingly looking similar to you know who. Let's get the basics sorted out first. The 2021 Gurkha had an overall length of 4116 mm, which was 116 mm above 4 meters. The 2024 Gurkha 3-door suddenly seems to have shrunk about 200 mm to a length of 3965 mm. Don't worry, the vehicle has not been shortened in any way. The logical explanation for this is that the company would have sent the vehicle without the spare wheel at the back for certification, which brings the total length under 4 meters and hence some tax savings. And that's why you see a 200 mm difference and nothing else. That explains why the Gurkha at the dealer level gets delivered like this, with the spare wheel being fitted later. The next obvious change are the wheels and the tires. The Gurkha 21 had a 245/70 R16 tire as stock, and the Gurkha 24 has a 255/65 18-inch wheel as stock, which means that the 24 Gurkha's tires are bigger, taller and wider, while trading off a little bit of sidewall cushioning, and the ground clearance gets bumped up by half the difference in the diameters. We also get to see shorter and wider ORVMs, which make it look less truck-like while giving a better field of view. And these added bushes for stopping this wheel rattling at the tail end is a welcome gesture. AdBlue tank on one side and a remotely operated fuel lid on the other side means that we don't have to get down at petrol stations and toggle with our keys like cavemen and just pop the lid open from inside with a push of a button like the rest of the world has been doing. At the rear end, the 5-ton pintle hook is missing. It has been removed. Why Force Motors? How much money would have you probably saved by taking off this life-saving kit? Guys, if you're getting this car, I think the mounting points are still intact, so reinstall that 5-ton pintle hook. It will save you or somebody else when you're really stuck in a sticky situation. If you have watched our older videos, you'll know that the 2021 Gurkha came with a nose down configuration or a rake, which is generally found in pickup trucks. so that when you load up the bed, then it evens out. This was done as a deliberate decision, probably to mimic the aerodynamic shape of a sedan and get us some saving on the taxes, maybe. But anyway, we had to do a lot of incremental modifications to the 2021 Gurkha to address that, along with the low ground clearance of the tax plate. The 2024 model is on even keel. It does not have a nose down rake. So the bonnet sits flat, horizontal. The bonnet is still heavy and difficult for an average person to lift without effort, and so I would have preferred hydraulic struts under the bonnet to help with the lifting, but that's what it is. From front ahead, we go to the front underbody, and we must appreciate Force Motors for really reworking the entire suspension and the steering rack and the way things have been laid out here. The steering rack, I find, is more improved along with the lower control arm design, and what this does for the turning radius is that it reduces the turning radius by 0.15 meters, and compared to the 5.9 meters of the 3-door Thar, the 2024 3-door Gurkha has a 5.5 meter turning radius. The longer wheelbase of the 5-door Gurkha obviously means that it will have a longer 6.3 meter turning radius, which could be a problem for narrow U-turns or when you're trying to squeeze into a tight parking spot. The Mahindra Thar still dominates the approach angle game at a whopping 42-degree approach angle thanks to its short front overhang, but thanks to the bigger wheels and the underbody rework, the 2024 Gurkha 3-door has improved its approach, ramp and departure angle by 2, 3 and 4 degrees respectively over the outgoing 2021 model. Getting inside the 5-door Gurkha, the driver's seat is a familiar face with a few new bits added, which we will get to in just a while. Coming to the second row, the seats have enough cushion in them and are soft, but the layout, the seating configuration is not optimized at all. The second row bench is too close to the first row seats, and combined with the high floor and the low seating, this makes it a little uncomfortable for longer journeys. The Gurkha does have enough length and width to have had adjustable rails on which the second row bench could have probably slid. It could have been done better. This is a lost opportunity. Opening the rear end of the 3-door, we find that the ancient bottle jack has been replaced by a better improved unit, and we actually get a handle which can be used, while the rest of the cabin remains largely unchanged with 2 captain seats at the rear and a gangway to walk through in the middle. Thankfully, the driver gets a small dead pedal, and this leather strap will come off because of the heavy door. It would be wise to replace it with a rubber strap similar to what the tailgate gets. Speaking about the tailgate, let's go and open up the back door of the 5-door Gurkha, and we will see there is a decent amount of luggage space, but I have to say it again, this is a missed opportunity, a design blunder on the seating configuration. These have to be flippable seats to liberate maximum luggage space. There is so much could have been done with such a large cabin volume which was available. A seriously missed design opportunity. So many flexible seating configurations could have been given, which would have made it so much better and practical. The mechanical differential locks are still retained, thankfully, but these plastic flimsy bits still remain, which will break the first time you use it. The dials are same. There's a crowd pleaser, bigger infotainment system. It's a glitchy and a very cumbersome system to use. I for one preferred the older Kenwood system. It was at least reliable and worked. Apple CarPlay worked with the wire, so it was fine. This one needs a separate app to run. It's too cumbersome. Our market seems to be obsessed with digital instrument clusters, so they have done a fair attempt and given you something to look at. I hope they got the TPMS right this time and it is not as annoying as the previous one. And another crowd favorite, the 4x4 dial or switch, which with a flick of a button you can go to 4 high or 4 low. It has a small lag associated with it, but yes, it is far easier to operate and so democratizes the 4x4 environment for a wider audience. Finally, the simple things like the armrest, which should have always been there, have found their way into the cabin now, and that is a big relief for the driver. The ergonomics of the driver is still flawed. The high floor and the low seating and insufficient tilt adjust makes finding your right driving position very difficult. The driving ergonomics is poor and is not suitable for everyone in the family. Rear passengers finally get 3-point seat belts, but it looks like an afterthought, and the way it has been integrated feels so industrial and last minute. Thank you for electrically adjustable ORVMs finally, and thank you again for the remote fuel lid. And by popular demand, let's jump into the mechanical upgrades. Once you manage to lift and prop up the heavy bonnet, you will realize that hydraulic struts should have been given for a vehicle of this size. The OM616 is still in here, but it is improved and juices out almost 140 horses, which is a good thing, but this is not the OM611 derived engine which we have seen in the Force Gurkha Extreme, which also used to make 140 horses. They have plunked in a bigger turbo, and which gives the Force Gurkha the bragging rights for 140 horses and 330 Newton meters of torque. But let's go ahead and talk about the exhaust system. This is the main reason for this midlife upgrade to exist in the first place. The 2024 Gurkha uses a DOC, SCR and a DPF configuration, while the 2021 Gurkha used a lean knock strap LNT and a DPF configuration. There is a misunderstanding that the DPF has been removed from this totally, and so associated problems would not be there. That is not true. The DPF will be a part of both the systems. What has changed is the lean knock strap has been changed with an SCR. In the 2021 Gurkha, the LNT used to be a big troublemaker because LNT is a small system meant for sub 2-liter engines. For some reason, it was given in the Gurkha as a shortcut to bypass the SCR requirement and AdBlue requirement, because BS6 didn't necessitate SCR unlike BS 6.2. So you did run into problems with the 2021 Gurkha. I did run into problems myself. The lambda sensor used to get choked and you had to clean it regularly if it started throwing up errors. And the regeneration was always a problem. There have been many owners who have complained about this. Few have been lucky with the regeneration. But in case your DPF gets choked and requires a complete replacement, then there was no other way to clean. You had to pull out the entire thing. Strip and clean the LNT and order yourself a new DPF as a replacement for the old one. Put everything back together and do the whole procedure again. Why am I talking so much about the DPF? Is because the DPF is still in this system also. So whatever is the problem with this DPF choking might find its way to the 2024 Gurkha as well, and we should be aware of that. A replacement DPF would set you back more than 30,000 rupees. Parts availability and the time taken for the parts to reach you, given the wafer-thin service and dealership network of Force Gurkha around the country, is a real issue. And the DPF is a critical component. Your vehicle will cough and will not move out of the workshop until this part comes back. So these are practical and real aspects of living with a Gurkha and a part of the ownership experience which you should remember. Let's get back to business and talk about the engine performance. Let's benchmark it against the Mahindra Thar, which makes 130 horsepower at 3750 RPM. The 2021 Gurkha used to make 91 horsepower at 3200 RPM. Both Jeeps had a flat torque band in the middle, with the Gurkha making 250 Newton meters from 1400 to 2400 and the Thar belting out 300 Newton meters between 1600 to 2800 RPM. The 2024 Gurkha gives us a wider torque band of 320 Newton meter of peak torque between 1400 and 2600 rpm and hits a peak power output of 140 bhp at 3200 rpm. So we will see that the peak torque not only comes earlier but also stays longer across a wider band of rev range. Let's talk about the gearbox. The 2024 Gurkha does have the improved gearbox which we had recommended in our last review, and the gear ratio spread looks something like this. The 2021 Gurkha had a 5.83 gear ratio spread, while the 2024 Gurkha has a relaxed 6.53 wider gear ratio spread compared against 5.53 gear ratio spread of the Thar. What do all these numbers mean? Simply that the gears are accommodated in a more gradual and a wider fashion and are going to be easy for the traction that the 2024 Gurkha would have. To understand the mechanicals behind this better, I would strongly recommend you to watch the Thar vs Gurkha video, which I will link in the description below. The maximum torque multiplication, as we showed in that video, for the Thar would be with 4 low engaged and in first gear, giving a torque multiplication of 42.26, which means whatever the torque the engine makes is multiplied 42 times at the wheel by the Thar. The 2021 Gurkha with low range and first gear engaged would have given us 41 times torque multiplication, which would have been in scroll ratio. With its improved engine and gearbox, the 2024 Gurkha makes 45 times torque multiplication, which is head and shoulders above everything else in the segment. But let's not celebrate yet, because despite all its strengths, weight does matter. We should quickly clarify here the difference between curb weight and gross vehicle weight. Gross vehicle weight is curb weight plus the payload weight, which includes all passengers and luggage loaded on to the truck. So some reviews conveniently compare gross vehicle weight of one car with the curb weight of other, which would be an unfair comparison. Here at Tripicino, we have compared the curb weight of all the cars we are talking about, so here goes. The 3-door Mahindra Thar tips the scales at a curb weight of 1783 kilograms. The 3-door Force Gurkha tips the scales at 2300 kilograms. And the 5-door Gurkha goes off the scales at 2625 kilograms. This is heavy by SUV standards. For comparison, the Scorpio weighs only 2085 kilograms curb weight. So despite its mechanical superiority, which we just demonstrated, the heavy weight of the Gurkha means it has lower power to weight ratio, and hence in reality on the road the Gurkha will not be as eager or as quick off the line as a Mahindra Thar, despite having more power on tap. And all this is, mind you, the curb weight. The vehicle will never travel at this weight. It will always have few passengers in payload, and with a maximum payload rating of 500 kilos, it only skews the numbers on the downside for the Gurkha. But let's not take it away from the Gurkha. That engine and gearbox combination can pull like mad at lower end. It is a torque monster and can easily pull itself and anything else out of the worst situations. Load it up with as much kit as you want, and as long as you're not in a big hurry, it will chug along all day like a freight train. That is the Gurkha's strength, and that should never be forgotten. Up next, we absolutely have to talk about the underbody architecture. I think that Force has spent more time sorting out the suspension, the steering rack and the underbody architecture than what they would have spent even on the engine and the gearbox. So follow me to the place where no other review has been before, to the dark underbelly of the Force Gurkha 2024. If you've seen our older videos where we struggled with the steering rack, this is a much better implementation. The gearbox is new, it's lifted from the 2.2 Extreme, which we absolutely love. The parts have been changed at many places and the implementation overall is slightly better and the cleaner layout overall. That is the SCR you see right there, part of the exhaust system. The cable management is also better. A flimsy namesake armor. With even an AdBlue tank, they have still managed to add half a liter capacity to the fuel tank now, which is at 63.5 liters. What I realize is it's even possible to put a full length underbody armor. The CV boot is longer and well sealed, it is better. The lower wishbone is flatter. If you remember, we had to do our underbody armor for the 2021 Gurkha in parts. This one, I think somebody will come up with a full body under armor. The steering rack is improved and that explains the better turning radius. The lower wishbone is thinner, but it's still strong enough and it's flatter. I think the bump stop gap is better in this one. Double seals, that's good. The bearings are also improved. If you remember, you had very tough time doing wheel alignment in the 2021 Gurkha. I reckon in this one it's going to be much easier. The underbody is clearly my favorite part of the 2024 Gurkha. I could do a full review just on what has changed underbody. Let me know in the comments below if you need one. Let me now give you a summary of the highlights of my driving impressions after having driven the 2024 Gurkha over a variety of terrain. Ride quality has always been the forte of the Gurkha and the 2024 model takes it a notch even higher. The ride is very sorted and especially the 5-door version, because of the better weight distribution over the axles, rides like a dream by body on frame standards. Clearly best in class ride. Kudos to Gabriel for the spot on suspension tuning. There is definite refinement in engine noise and the cabin insulation is superior to the 2021 model. The NVH quality has much improved. While pickup and in-gear acceleration is much better than the 21 Gurkha thanks to the mechanical advantage we already explained, its weight still reminds you that you're driving a large truck. The Thar is still the more fun to drive on-road. The Gurkha even feels less nervous at higher speeds now, and the 5-door can comfortably hold 100-110 all day cruising comfortably. Any faster, then you're driving the wrong car. The Gurkha is not for you. The brakes have been tuned too soft and there's no clear bite point early on. This makes it less confident to carry more speed in such a large truck. Doesn't take much to fix this issue and I hope they do it ASAP on the next refresh. And that brings us to the interesting million-dollar question of should you buy one? We had a poll on the community and the general questions were: who should buy it? Which variant should be bought? Can it be the only car in the house? And how does it stack against the competition? We'll answer all that. We've already had a Gurkha vs Thar vs Jimny video. I will link that in the description below. Please do check that out. It solves most of the common questions. Let's have some fun in answering this question of should you buy one. We'll attempt to answer this by analyzing the demographic of prospective buyers who walk into the showroom to evaluate the Gurkha. Don't worry too much about the percentages, but give or take, I feel that 10% of all people walking into the showroom are Gurkha geeks. So these are the fans of Gurkha. They are already convinced about the Gurkha and this review will make no difference to them. They have been waiting for the Gurkha for the past 2 years when we've had a hiatus from the company, and finally now it has been launched, so they will go right ahead and pick it up and book it. This also explains the pent-up demand for the Gurkha and the initial bookings going up than the usual average selling price. These were the people who waited for the BS 6.2 and they're already decided. So go ahead and have fun. But when these people walk into the showroom, the problem is that they want to get the practical 5-door option, and since it's so expensive, they end up booking the 3-door, which reflects in the kind of bookings we are seeing now among dealers. The next 4 to 5% of people are in the category of off-road junkies. Probably rejected the idea of having to build out an old gypsy and want something new which is plug and play, so that they can do a little bit of DIY and build out their own off-roader or overlanding. For this category of people, the Gurkha does present a very strong case, being a plug and play off-roader. Double manual differential locks, factory fitted snorkel, it's ready, it's good to go. The next category is a very thin slice of people who actually are looking to make a workhorse out of this. These are people who probably own a farm or an estate and don't want to get a pickup truck for some reason, or they live in an area where the terrain demands the capabilities of a 4x4 truck like the Gurkha. I personally know a couple of people who would fall exactly into this category, and I can visualize the Gurkha being a good option for them. I would also include people who use the truck for work. For example, the Kolkata storm chasers who use the Gurkha as a skiff vehicle for storm chasing. So the Gurkha lends itself very well to adapt to such particular work requirements, and for that I would highly recommend this. The next category is the weekend warrior. If you're looking at the Gurkha as a second car, if you want it to quench your thirst of adventure or want to use it for a recreational purpose, I would also add to this category people involved in some kind of sport where you need to either tow a boat or carry a motorcycle, bicycles or dirt bikes. For this category, this Gurkha does work, and based on your capacity requirement, you could choose either the 3-door or the 5-door. Maybe you want to go for a weekend vacation or a short-term trip into the wilderness, or maybe you want to build out a full-blown overlanding rig. The Gurkha gives an excellent platform for that. The last and the majority of people who will walk into the showroom, especially after the launch of the 5-door Gurkha, is the family man. Most of the buyers in this category are families looking at this as the one car do all. It would also be their daily commuter and needs to tackle the urban jungle with the same level of ease as the real jungle. If you fall in this category and are still interested in the Gurkha, please be aware of the commitment required to maintain a niche vehicle as the only car in the house. With a scanty service network of only 56 touchpoints as of today, if a major component in your car fails or if you're waiting for parts at the workshop, it is going to completely derail you. Compare this to Mahindra & Mahindra with more than 380 touchpoints, and Maruti we needn't even mention about their wide service network. With no seat adjust, the poor driver ergonomics we already discussed, the lack of an automatic transmission option means that this Gurkha may not be flexible to adapt to both you and your spouse at the same time. If you're a family considering the Gurkha, then I would recommend that you load up your entire family in the vehicle and take a good long test drive to see if the lack of flexibility in the seating configuration is a deal breaker for you. You must also check if everybody in the family is okay with ingress and egress getting in and out of the car. If we study the sales figures over the last 6 months of the Thar and the Jimny, it is clear that the Thar is way beyond anyone else in the competition, consistently selling over 5,000 units a month compared to the Jimny, which sells in the lower hundreds. The Gurkha, ever since its launch in 2021, has managed only sub-100 monthly sales. So clearly for Force Motors, this is a low volume and high margin game. And that is going to affect the customer because he's going to pay a high price compared to the competition. Look at these ex-showroom prices and you'll see that the Gurkha is rubbing shoulders with the classic Scorpio and sits bang in the middle of the Scorpio end range. Both these products are much more value packages for the majority of buyers compared to a niche product like the Gurkha. As I always say, the Gurkha is a sledgehammer. It is not a jack of all trades, it is a master of one. And among all the generations of Gurkha, the 2024 version is the most improved one yet. Gurkha is perfectly built for specific tasks, and in these roles it can outdo many other cars several times its cost. But do you need that kind of capability for your requirement? That is something you have to ask yourself. Think about which category you belong to and make an informed decision. Finally, motivated by our previous video where all our predictions came true for the 2024 Gurkha, looks like Force is listening. So here's some free advice to Force Motors if they would listen again. The first one is introduce a 4x2 version. Learn from the Thar sales. It would help bring the price down and move more units. The second is to implement flexible seating. You've got an apartment-sized cabin. Give the flexibility to the customer to choose between seating for passengers and luggage. The second bench has to be on rails, movable, reclinable, and for the third row you could have captain seats or even side-facing bench seats or completely flippable and removable seats. Give the choice to the buyer. Even on all 6 captain seats, Hexa configuration wouldn't be a bad idea. The entire world, including purpose-built off-road trucks, are moving towards automatic transmission, and the Gurkha cannot be left behind. To appeal to a wider audience, we absolutely need an automatic option. The next is to sort out the ergonomics and give a flexible, adjustable option of seat and steering combination to suit all drivers in the family. This is easier said than done, and you will have to go back to the drawing board and design the entire cabin from scratch. Given that high floor and low seating, which is a past design relic, this is going to be an uphill task. While we are tinkering with the interiors, it would not be a bad idea to throw in some soft bits, at least at the touch points, and update the interior quality to look like 2024. We've also seen a pickup truck version delivered to Indonesia on special order. That version, if launched at a budget, would definitely find takers among several categories of buyers we discussed before. With all this, widening of the parts availability and the service network is absolutely critical. Exclusive Gurkha dealerships sound good on paper, but we would rather rope in the commercial tempo traveler dealers so that at least the parts are available for all Gurkha owners everywhere. The next version of the Gurkha has to be lighter. It has to lose weight. The OM616 itself is so heavy. The Gurkha has to go on a diet if it has to be an efficient machine. And for the last bonus advice, the leadership at Force Motors should drive the Gurkha themselves as a daily driver to work every day, just like the customers do, to understand firsthand what it is like to live with a Gurkha. Only then will the Gurkha be the best possible version of itself. If you like the video, please do subscribe to the channel. That will encourage us to get more quality content to you. If you learned anything new today from this video, please let us know in the comment below and share it with a friend whom you think will find it useful. Until next time, bye bye and take care.